Well, we're up and running. Here we are, a little bit late, I think.
We had to spend time thinking about what we're going to do.
Well, that would explain the smoke coming out of my head then. But
Yeah, the truth of the matter is that we've been overwhelmed with information.
well, I guess that's true in many respects. And I think in pre-production, we're kind of talking about that we are seeing the results of people running around with their cloth to wring their hands with and bones to gnaw away at and just tears of all the things that have possibly gone wrong and could be going wrong or might go wrong. And I guess nobody's really looking at, nothing is really wrong. We're just being force-fed something that we may or may not like, and we have to start dealing with that.
And your point is?
We're
living in an upside down world.
Yeah. I mean, we should be living in Australia, Maybe then we would see things for what they are.
Well, this is the 7th of February. Season 4, episode 6 for the record.
Wow.
I have something very important though to ask you to just right off the beginning.
Uh-oh.
Okay, ready? How do you put dishes in your dishwasher?
Well,
is there order that you have to do, or do you just put stuff in? Or do you have any conversations with your beloved about how stuff goes in the dishwasher?
But the only concern we had on that was whether you put the parts of the utensils that go into your mouth up or down.
Yes, I've had that conversation. What about the order in which the stuff goes in?
Well, I like to keep bowls together because I find if with bowls, plates, and things that it just kind of, I guess that would be my structure. All the bowls go together and all the dinner plates go together and all the lunch plates go together.
Okay, I'm just asking because we're talking about earth-shattering issues locally here, whether Canada will become the 51st state or whether the war in the Middle East will subside or
will just become part of the United States and be the next Florida beach area.
Exactly. So in the meantime, the news of the day has been whether or not you're putting your dishes in properly in the dishwasher, and how many couples have had enormous disagreements on the home economic front of whether the dishes have been properly placed in the dishwasher or whether they've been this is first world problem here, whether the dishes have been rinsed before they went into the dishwasher.
I find on that particular case that the peanut butter has to come off the knife because our dishwasher just does not take the peanut butter off very well.
And are you still in a loving relationship with your significant other, in spite of the fact that maybe the forks are not the same direction?
I think we are, but she just left about an hour ago to be on a retreat weekend with her chorus group. So,
so you can put them
home on Sunday. I guess I'll know.
Okay, but in the meantime, you can put those forks and knives in any way you like.
No, I've been domesticated.
Okay, I see. Okay, so you're like a lot of people who have been told to do this way or that way.
Yes.
And you're following through on that. In the realm of dishwashers.
In the realm of dishwashing, yes. It does make sense, and apparently it was backed up by several of my good wife's friends who are nurses. who worked in the OR, and that they were told that when you put your things in to get them steam clean for operations, you put the pointy ends down so that when you lift them out, you don't contaminate it. So it does make sense, and I guess I took that to heart and said, okay, I can live with that.
Okay, all right. Well, then that takes us directly into the weightier issues of the day.
Oh no.
Oh, yes. As you know, for the last week or so, our friends from the South, i.e., the United States of America, particularly one Donald Trump, has given Canada a little bit of a reprieve from the tariffs that he threatened to impose, 25% across the board, unless Canada, led by the person who is the prime minister, because I have difficulty even uttering this man's name, did what he wants him to do. And the deal was made in the last minute. And 4 days later, it would appear that the idiot king isn't doing what he promised the American president he would do, because there's been no real movement to meet the requirements that were agreed to. And one of his underling ministers went on the TV yesterday or today and said it's really not necessary, to do anything, because everything is under control with the tools they have at hand to deal with it. And there really isn't any real number. The quantity of fentanyl going in from Canada is so minuscule that it's just ridiculous that we're taking this thing.
And I'd have to say, based on statistics, that's probably correct. But the statistics are based on apprehensions or seizures. And it's kind of like when you and I worked on the border. We know how many people we saw because we could keep a lumberman's tally, or we could put them in the computer, we could do this, we could do that. But in the end of an 8-hour shift, be that a day shift, an afternoon shift, or a graveyard shift, we had no idea of the number of people that were sneaking around or hiding in trunks or doing anything else. So I have what's the word? I take umbrage with the fact that we're hanging our hat on statistics that are really meaningless.
Well, here's some statistics. The last year that the records have been kept, so we're talking 2023, 24, 49,000 some number of Canadians have died from fentanyl overdoses or poisonings. Okay, that's more Canadians than died in the Second World War. But apparently that's so minuscule that this government of Mr. McGuinty is irrelevant. When he talks about how we have the tools to deal with what comes into the country and may transit the country, it's been made clear that nobody checks any trains coming into this country or going. There's nobody to do it. They check less than 1% of the containers that come into the ports, because apparently that's now no concern. So, statistics be damned. These are clear indicators that the ability of our government and the tools they have on hand are not sufficient to deal with the crisis. Never mind that they never speak of the 20,000 student visas that were issued who never went to school. Okay.
Well, that's how I saw in the flyby news today that they have now figured there was 2 separate studies done. One was 50,000 that was put out 2 days ago, and then they found an additional 20,000 today on a different report. So and if they're admitting to 80,000, 90,000 people they don't know, yes, that it's probably double or triple.
Right. So these fools, again, have to temper my comments because we don't want to be censored by
Anybody.
by the platforms for being vulgar or angry. Have now basically decided that the Liberal Party Canada, is more important than the country in dealing with this issue of border security, immigration, refugee management. It's more important that they get their own party issues straightened out and the country can figure out whatever the hell it wants to do afterwards. Moreover, the idiot king has decided to take 4 days off and went off to Europe on his farewell tour after giving a speech yesterday about how he's quite prepared to be ruthless from now on and with respect to ideas on how to challenge President Trump and the Americans on this issue. And by the way, it's been clarified more than once that this has nothing to do with tariffs. This is all about fixing the border and getting your backdoor immigration closed. But that's obviously not, these fools want to fight with the Americans. And now suddenly the same fools that have decided that Canada is not a country, it's just a place, it's a post-nation state, are now wrapping themselves. They're all patriots all of a sudden.
Well, that's true, and we know darn well this is the government that has taken the post-nation state to its nth degree by taking a passport that was full of patriotic things like Vimy Ridge, the Grey Cup, the Stanley Cup, the Niagara Falls. There's iconic pictures that were just all of a sudden removed, and now we have a representation of stick people swimming in pools, or stick people playing hockey, or stars, or circles, and you're right. And now all of a sudden, this same group has decided that, oh my goodness me, we're getting bullied, and now I'm going to be a nationalist, and I'm going to wrap myself in a flag. I'm going to drink maple syrup. And if you're a real strong Canadian, if you're really, really a good Canadian, you'll boo the national anthem of the United States at sports events.
That's brave. That's brave.
This is just out and out. It's even less than JV politics, and I don't know what's below JV, but
Pee-wee, student council. We've got lots of analogies.
It's like that analogy of how stupid can people get. I don't want to say this out loud, but I mean, how low or how base can we get on this issue of what's going on between Canada and the United States? Because somebody's going to take it to a challenge and reach a new low. And once we start that game, who knows where we're going to end up.
Well, what bothers me, Bob, is that for me to be Canadian doesn't make me, I'm not going to become anti-American to suddenly be Canadian, which I find this whole thing is predicated on. When asked, so what is it that makes a Canadian? Well, we're not American. That's the stupidest thing I ever, that is such a stupid reaction, but one which is very much embraced by this bunch of clowns that run this country, okay, who are now suddenly going to coronate someone who hasn't even lived here for 10 years, okay, who's got a checkered passports, who's got 2 other passports. He can run off to Ireland or hide out in the UK if things don't work out here for him. He has no address in Canada. He just kind of shows up out of nowhere and is going to be coronated leader of this party, which is a joke. And by the way, the co-chair of the party and the Minister of Tourism, interesting juxtaposition there, quit outright. Boom, gone. No longer, will not run, is not even in Parliament, is gone. So as I said in pre-production, I wonder what secrets she has between her ears that she's walking out in the front door with. But be that as it may, what country faces supposedly an existential threat created by its own leadership, all right, and then closes down the very institution that gives the people a chance to find out what the hell they're actually doing to protect the country. The same people they've looked down their noses on for a good 10 years and could care less. Now suddenly they're becoming the saviors, the Joan of Arcs of the country, because those evil Americans are going to kick the poop out of the place. This is so much nonsense. To our American friends and colleagues and viewers, listeners, this is not Canada, okay? Canada is not about being anti-American. And as far as I'm concerned, I can't. I'm not going to apologize for the idiots that we have running the place, or the idiots that boo your national anthem, okay? Because we have just as many Yahoo fools and idiots as you have. So I won't be upset if some of the clowns that you have 10 times more than we have by population boo the Canadian national anthem at any sporting event going forward, because you can't keep jerks away from these events. But anyhow, that's just having my say on that issue.
That's true. And whether it's a 30-day reprieve on tariffs or not, it's kind of immaterial. And I'll risk the wrath of people by saying I think that President Trump did us a big favor by pointing out some weaknesses. I would hope that people will take that to heart and realize that whether you have drunk the Kool-Aid that says that we're a post-nation state or not, you better wake up and realize that if you want to be a Canadian, you want to be able to fly the maple leaf flag, you want to have maple syrup and lumberjacks, you better decide if it's worth fighting for.
Well, what are you going to take pride in?
Well,
that's the fundamental thing about your community, your province, your country. What is it makes you proud? What is it you take pride in? Taking pride in not being an American isn't going to do it. Okay, when I can't buy a bottle of British Columbia wine in Ontario, that tells me something. When the province of Quebec says we're only on Team Canada while it serves our purpose, but as soon as you start talking about cutting interprovincial trade restrictions, well, no, we're not doing that. Okay.
Or you want to put a pipeline through my territory.
For example. And their hands don't shake when they take the $13 billion a year in subsidies, transfer payments, yes, from the very province that is saying, we'd like to be able to ship that which gives you the money to survive, because that 13 billion, it was pulled away, Quebec would be a poor place. Okay, that's a lot of money, and since 1867 that game's been played. And I think, to their credit, people in Western Canada have been very, very patient with the setup. And
very true, and I guess it gets down to a point that again, for the non-Canadian listeners, and even for Canadian listeners who may or may not realize the transfer payments that go on from the have provinces to the have-nots, and I'm still trying to figure out how Quebec is a have-not province. It still gets 50%. So of that 13 billion they're getting, that leaves another 13 billion to be distributed between other have-not provinces. And I think the last little bit that went out was Atlantic Canada got some of it. Newfoundland, Labrador don't get it because they've got their own oil reserves. I believe your province got some.
Ontario got 500 million and change.
And Manitoba got some.
Yep.
Certainly, BC didn't. Alberta certainly didn't. And Saskatchewan didn't. Now, maybe the territories up north did. I don't know. I don't even know if they're considered part of that deal. But it does bring a lot into bearing here. And, you know, we're seeing this again with Amazon deciding to shut down 7 plants in Quebec. And now the federal government has issued a directive through one of its departments, Parks Canada, to reevaluate and stop the contract that they had with Amazon. I'm not sure what Parks Canada shipped with Amazon or didn't ship, but it boggles the mind at where these people decide that they want to draw lines in the sand.
Well, it's juvenile to the extreme. We've talked about this before. You know, the way these politicians in the federal government are acting, they are akin to a student council, you know, deciding whether they're, you know, the bleachers should be having cupcakes at halftime. I mean, this is just beyond the pale. And you know, this is where it's embarrassing, where the adults in the room suddenly appear to have been fooling us for the last decade. With you know, because this is a crisis. Canada has not faced a crisis like this since this bunch of dimwits took over in 2015. And now what we see is a complete collapse, frankly, of any leadership acumen. If you look at what they've done over the last year, all sorts of these jokers have quit and left the cabinet, one after another. And so who's left? The ones that are the tight little cabal, the thugs around the idiot king to keep him in power. Okay, who, by the way, as I said earlier, is off on a plane again to do his European farewell tour. Nobody gives a damn in Europe what this clown has to say. So what leader of a democracy in a supposedly a functioning country buggers off for 4 days while the place is being burned to the ground by his thugs? With one stupid comment after the next. And all they talk about and all they want to worry about is who's going to be leading this gang of pirates. Until March the 9th, this country is completely without any leadership.
And frankly, a couple of weeks after that before Parliament reconvenes.
And if the president decides that he doesn't get what he negotiated, he's been double-crossed, which I think he's already been double-crossed by this gang, because there's no evidence that they're doing anything really to motivate the movement of people and systems and so on to do exactly what he reprieved Canada to do. When you compare President Sheinbaum in Mexico, she didn't go off half-cocked and say, oh, I'm going to do countervailing tariffs. She said, you know what? I'm going to take 10,000 of the National Guard and I'll put an end to this shit that's going through here and I will solve the problem. Okay, because I want to keep those factories in Mexico. I want to keep Mexicans working and I don't need to piss off the Americans. So you know what? It's best if I keep all this migrant movement the hell out of Texas and Arizona and California. Just put an end to it. Okay, because my country is worth more being pals with this behemoth beside me than to pick a fight. What does this bunch do? Precisely the opposite. You know, within hours of the statement being brought out by Trump about the sanctions, which are all about leverage, it wasn't about trade. He's not going to screw up the trade, particularly between Canada and the U.S. overnight. He might do it over time, but not overnight, as these idiots. As soon as they went in, well, we're going to do counter tariffs, okay, without even thinking what that means. Then you have dipwads. I'm trying to keep words in without using, you know, like the Premier of Ontario. I'm going to teach Elon Musk a lesson. I'm going to get rid of those Starlink internet connections for Northern Ontario, which, you know, all of a sudden he was just brilliant when he brought that on, but he's really smart because he's going to stop it. And then a couple of days after, Trump says, okay, I'll give you 30 days to clean up your act, he has one of his underlings, well, we'll put the Starlink thing back. Okay. I mean, come on. What a bunch of juvenile nonsense. Then he calls an election in this province because his boogeyman, his whole election thing is, I'm going to teach Trump a lesson. He doesn't talk about the fact that he's done diddly squat for this province to increase its ability to manufacture. Since he's been in power, the manufacturing sector in this province has declined. Okay. So, and if push comes to shove and the auto industry says, you know what, this isn't worth our time and our money, we're just going to go to Mexico or to the States, the Canada will have been pushed down to 5% of his GDP based on manufacturing. Okay.
Yeah. And part of that still comes with the fact, I don't know how your guy is, but our guy out here took over the leading party. And when they went into the election 4 months ago now, it turned out that he had taken our $9 billion surplus and turned it into an $800 million deficit. So
follow the money.
That's just a microcosm of the problem we have here in Canada is that and it seems to work quite well, is we like to buy people off with their own money.
Oh, we do this all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
All the time. And let's face it, this country is a socialist country. All right. And not only is it a socialist country, it's slipping into a form of dictatorship, which is very clear. Soviet apparatchiks operated this way in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. There was no parliament, and that's what we have no parliament. We have a parliament name, but we don't. We have a constitutional monarchy where the actual representative of the monarchy, if anybody wants to know, doesn't do anything except rubber stamp whatever the idiot king tells her to do. Yeah. Okay. So here we have, as I said earlier, an existential crisis in a democracy where there is no parliament functioning. In any other place on this planet, any other democracy, the people would be out on the streets demanding these people go to work. What the hell are all these MPs doing? Picking up a paycheck every 2 weeks for doing absolutely nothing.
And I guess, too, the thing that kind of it received a bit of press, but it has not received the type of press that I think it should have, is the apparent anointed replacement was in front of the TV cameras and said, well, if I am successful in the bid, I don't have to worry. I'm not elected. I don't have to worry about it because there's been precedent set before where prime ministers haven't been in parliament. But we don't have to worry about doing much because we have the thing called the Emergency Act. And I'm thinking, yeah, that really worked out well. You invoked it a couple of years ago and it was found to be invoked unconstitutionally.
Yes.
So, yeah, you're right. How are we on that slippery slope and we're not going to be able to stop it in time, or are we going to?
Oh, we're sliding down. We're on the slope. We're there's lots of metaphors, circling the drain, call it what you like. But this is not how a responsible government, this is not how the people's house is abused. Okay, because that's what's happening here. And if people looking in from the outside go, what the hell kind of country is it that won't even stand up for its own people? These people aren't standing up for us as Canadians. They're standing up for their damn parties.
In their own pockets.
It's their own.
It's right.
All they care about is staying in power. It's all about the damn party.
And it would make more sense to me. And again, some of the attack ads that are coming out against the leader of the opposition right now about how he did this and how well, first and foremost, he's never been in a position where he has been able to direct that kind of voting. Yeah. And it indicates
gaslighting has started. I understand.
Well, it is, and it indicates to me that one, they're worried, but two, you can easily turn that paintbrush around and say, oh, Mr. Poilievre is a career politician. Well, I don't know one politician that isn't a career politician.
Exactly.
Mr. Poilievre has now served his time and he's going to get a $3.5 million pension from you, the people. Well, if you've been in 6 years or more, then you're getting that same $3.5 million pension.
Correct.
So let's look at this objectively and say, yeah, you're in it for yourself. Maybe Mr. Polyev is in it for himself. I don't know. We just have to start standing up and saying, particularly to the likes of Mr. Trump, President Trump, we're going to change things. And while we may have a couple of Black Hawk helicopters going across the 49th parallel and intercepting people, our problem is not the people that are sneaking south. It's the people that we're letting in.
The back door.
No control over that.
The back door has been open to almost 5 million people who should not be there. I'm so tired of hearing about the 41 million Canadians that are, upset. First of all, take away the 5 million shouldn't be here. We're back down to 36 million or 35 million Canadians. Those are who really is here. Do you think those people, those 20 or 50,000 students that came in, never went to school, give a rat's patootie about this? They could care less.
Well, that's true. And of that 36 million, how many people are actually citizens? As opposed to permanent residents, those
exactly.
are supposed to be able to vote, but may end up voting.
And as I said, that if you were in any other functioning democracy, the people would be out on the streets demanding that these SOBs go back to work. But they've had their spines pulled out. These people have become afraid of their own government because they saw what happened in Ottawa when there was a peaceful demonstration during the pandemic, and the truckers went there and they had their bank accounts frozen. They were arrested. Some of them are still in jail. I mean, these people have been like scared rabbits now. They're not going to go out and protest these undemocratic dipshits that are running this country. Sorry.
And interesting too, it's a matter of strangeness, how they could find out all these bank accounts, but they couldn't tell you how many illegal immigrants are in the country, or how much it would take to refund our border people, how much it would refund, or to refund is not a give back money, but put money into our military, our equipment that we seem to be willy-nilly giving to the Ukraine. There's so many things wrong on so many levels, and maybe that's part of the point. We're standing in front of the Great Chicago Fire with a garden hose, and we don't know where to point the hose.
Well, I think it's even worse than that. I think the psyche of honest Canadians has been damaged. They're afraid to speak up. They're afraid that they'll watch Palestinian protesters break the law all over the place and hide in their suburbs and hide in their condos and hide on their farms. They won't come out and say, listen, this has got to stop. Now the government is doing to them whatever the hell they want to do, and they're still hiding in their suburbs. They're hiding in their condos. And they're hiding in their farmhouses. Okay. This is what you're going to get from a Soviet style government. This is what these people, they're not, this cabal is not the least bit afraid of lying to you, of making up stories about how they're going to do this, that, everything. Up until Trump came along, they didn't give a rat's behind about Canada. It was the post-nation state. That was it. And worry about the sky falling and I'll rip you off with climate change BS. Now this guy comes along and says, this is not going to go on any longer. Now they're suddenly proud, patriotic Canadians. Well, they make me sick because they're no more. They're just a bunch of charlatans, and that's the nicest thing I can say about them.
I'd say that too, but I don't know if I could spell charlatan.
It's a tough word.
That's right.
In the meantime, by the way, they talk about kinetic reactions. Okay, so yesterday, our American pals were subjected, or the day before, to unveiling of all the rubbish that the USAID was involved in. Okay, which it's a whole other discussion. But what the kinetic reaction was, that suddenly people were looking at the Global Affairs Canada. I love it. Global affairs, we're such a powerful, juvenile nonsense. We used to have foreign affairs, external affairs, but now we're global affairs. But I digress. Those jokers had links to various aid programs that mirrored the USAID. Let's face it, they were chasing the same despots in Africa and the same goofballs in Europe and South America. They gave money to on various and sundry stupid projects. And I'm not going to go into describing them because all you have to do is look at what's being revealed in the U.S. and you just take that and you put up a mirror to it. It's the same stuff that Global Affairs was doing in Canada, just not the same amount of money, but the same corruption is involved, the same nonsense. So all of a sudden, their web server goes down, or because they were doing some what do you call it, the maintenance. Okay, but of course, nice try, but the books were already cooked, and people had already revealed, there's literally thousands of contracts and billions of dollars that have been pissed away in foreign aid by the idiot king and his pirates, right? So it just goes from bad to worse, and in order to keep one's sanity, you have to wonder, whether we're living in sort of another universe when you question this stuff, because some of my neighbors and friends think there's nothing wrong. Like, this is what's getting me crazy. No, this is perfect. This Carney guy, he's really smart. He's an economist, I go, what the hell are you talking about? Oh, no, he's brilliant. He's really going to change things around. And I'm thinking, the guy hasn't even lived in this country for 10 years. He just shows he's parachuted in, okay? Yeah. And all of a sudden, he's the savior of Canada.
Well, we've had that too with, you don't want to disparage the passed away, but we've had a lot of people who have made their fortunes in La La Land and haven't lived in Canada for decades, but still want to be able to maintain their Canadian citizenship to vote. I have a fundamental problem with that too. But yeah, there's a whole problem with this, and it goes, I'm afraid, beyond the decade that we've had with our current bunch to the 60s before we started our gentle decline. I don't know. We had pride in the country. We had acts that meant, people that took their oaths of citizenship because it was
a pride
privilege. It was a wonderful thing.
Yes.
Like now, I think, you get the people that are here for 3 minutes can apply for citizenship. It's gone totally meaningless. And
well, it's a place to hide out and launder your money.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you think the cartels are here? Why is this country full of organized fraud types who are clearly identified even by the RCMP? 4,000 organized groups involved in criminal activities. How in the hell does the head of the federal police have the balls to stand up in front of a committee and say, yeah, we knew about that, so what are you doing about it? And you get nothing. You get crickets. And you're going, well, it's no wonder the real adults who are looking at this stuff, perhaps in another country next door, go, this is a scary bunch of clowns that are running that pink part on the map up there.
Well,
what do you mean you have 4,000 organized crime? Well, we know who they are, but we're keeping an eye on them. Give me a break.
Well, we also are fighting our court systems too. It was in the paper a month ago of a guy who was arrested with $36 million worth of drugs at the border. And he went to jail and he pled guilty, all his tears running down his face and real remorseful. But the judge decided that he wouldn't sentence him until after the birth of his child. Once his child was born, we were going to, then we'll hammer him. Well, I'm thinking, it's no wonder the people have no respect for politicians. They've got no respect for our court systems. And I will say thank you very much to all the people that want to be first responders, police, fire, ambulance, because my gosh, without you being out there, we would be in real dire straits.
I'm going to say something controversial. I don't think Canadians have self-respect for themselves anymore.
Well,
That's really the problem.
yeah.
When you lose your self-respect by permitting this kind of nonsense to be your leadership, your mentors, your guiding. I mean, you've lost. You know, what are you talking about? Okay, I mean this is pathetic. Okay,
With a capital P.
Yeah, just you and I talking. We're just two old guys who are looking at what the hell has happened to this country, and you wonder why Hollywood type like Trump comes along and runs circles around him, basically. Okay, whether he's right or wrong. Listen, he is elected by Americans to do what Americans wanted him to do. Okay, that's what democracy is about. In 4 years' time, they can change their mind, but they obviously didn't like the last 4 years because that guy was asleep at the switch. And by the way, well and truly linked to the idiot king that runs this place. So
well, and I guess that's true. There's a bit of a difference, and you're right. The Americans did vote in somebody who was, at this point, appears to be doing what they want.
Oh, no question.
And we try and do the same thing here, where we vote in a party, completely forgetting, because as we mentioned before on our broadcasts, most politicians rely on the fact that the voters have the attention span of a goldfish, which is about 3 seconds.
Yep.
That once you've elected the men, they are not doing what you want, they are doing what the party wants.
Exactly.
And I don't know if we can fix that or not either, but that's probably another whole episode.
Yeah, that's true. But you know, I can't say what you like about Donald Trump. He said over and over again he was going to do X, Y, Z, as they say in the United States. And guess what he's done in 2 weeks? He's doing X, Y, and Z. And nobody, even in the United States, can get their head around that because he's not a politician, obviously, because politicians go, I'm going to do X, Y, Z in Canada, and they do A, B, C after they get nice and comfortable in Parliament.
Yeah.
And you're going, wait a second, that's not what you said you were going to do.
Oh, so I lied.
Yeah, because my lips were moving. Therefore, I must be lying. Anyway,
the consummate politician. Yeah.
Oh, God. Anyway, this is this is a depressing episode, I'm afraid, for us because right now I see no light at the end of the tunnel, or if it's a light, it's a freight train coming towards us, and it's got a Old Glory waving on its side, and I'm really and you know what? Since no one's explained to me, and this is the part that I think we have to, maybe in our next episode, we should do a little research. What exactly does it mean if that 51st state offer is made? Like, what are we talking about? And because there's no details. Like I would say, here's some free advice to Mr. Trump. How about telling us what exactly you mean without the theatrics?
Yeah.
What's the deal? You're the guy with the art of the deal. Tell me what the deal is, because if you make it a real deal, I guarantee that these goofballs that are at the moment screwing around in Canada or over in Europe doing his farewell tour are going to be in a tough spot, because when I see something like a contract on the table, it says, here's the deal, the art of the deal, like his book. I want to see that. That's advice number one to our friends down south. To Mr. Polyev, here's my recommendation. Okay, you've kept your mouth shut so far about what you want to do with this whole business of the 51st state. You've said, oh, we're not for sale and all that. We've listened to the slogans. But how about now is the time for you to pick up the phone and ask to talk to the President of the United States and tell him what you think you could do with him to solve this problem to everyone's mutual benefit. Doesn't mean selling out the country. Mm-hmm. It just means stop this nonsense that's going on with the uncertainty that's being perpetrated by the Liberal Party, just because the Liberal Party wants to stay in power, okay, and they don't give a tinker's damn about the country. It's very evident. All right. So,
well, that's very true. And so, if we're in this big, huge crisis of being gobbled up to become the 51st state, or we have this tariffs and tariff wars coming on, it certainly can't be as bad as what the Liberals are portraying, because one, they are having a convention that's not even taking into account any of this nonsense. And two, the de facto leader, soon to be replaced leader, decides that 4 days off on a vacation somewhere is okay. So it can't be that big a crisis.
No, and honestly, I think that you've been circumspect until now with respect to talking to the administration.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you're just the leader of the opposition, but you represent Canadians just as much as other MPs represent Canadians.
Well, right.
So
look at the poll numbers on that too. Yeah, you had more of the popular vote than the current government, so you're
precisely
representing a lot more people than the current government. So get out there and speak for them. Yeah,
go out there, get down to Washington. Don't go bending your knee. Go down there and talk to those people. Not some third-rate senator from some unknown state like the bimbos that have gone down so far. You know, you want to talk to the man. You want to talk to his team and find out just exactly where this can go and where exactly you stand, and come back and tell us. Okay, I don't want to hear the BS anymore from these so-called leaders of the government of Canada, because they're only leaders of the party of Liberals. That's their number one issue. They could care less about Canada. They're going to take us down the garden path as soon as they're done figuring out how they can anoint this guy who doesn't even have a Canadian address. He just flew in from the UK to suddenly take over like the king. So idiot king number one becomes idiot king the second. That's what's going to happen. So I know these are really harsh words, and I'm sure some of our Liberal friends are probably losing their hair or hair's on fire because I've said what. But this is not a game anymore. There has to be some serious discussion here with tangible outcomes proposed on the table. Whether it's on a time frame of 1 year, 10 years, I don't know. But all this hair on fire nonsense isn't going to help us. And we've got limited choices here, and so let's not be afraid to look the devil in the eye, okay, if you want to put it that way, and see what exactly it is that can be done. So, Mr. Poilievre, don't be afraid to be called names by this bunch of goons that currently occupy the chair, because they've done nothing to improve the situation. You have a chance here. As far as that other person, Mr. Singh, you can trust him like you can trust a rattlesnake in a bag. So he is not going to do any favors for Canada either, because if it's all about staying in power, he will do exactly what he's done 3 times already. He will back the Liberals just to make sure his paycheck is protected. Okay, this guy is a proverbial snake in the grass. Forget being a snake in the bag. He's a snake in the grass. He's a viper. Okay, he's a con man, confidence man, political confidence man is all this guy is. So anyway, those are 2 free bits of advice. Take it or leave it. Doesn't matter. Nobody gives a damn whether we're just 2 old guys, venting.
That's right. And we're almost at the age now where if you ask us what we said, we won't be able to tell you anyway. So
don't remember.
But
well, that's it. We still have to keep a sort of a sense of humor, but it's getting more difficult, I have to say. I never thought that we'd be in this predicament. even some months ago. I mean, I knew that most people despised the idiot king and his crowd, but I didn't think they'd get us into this mess. I think we're in much deeper trouble than we even imagine. You know, we're talking here over the fence, but I suspect we're in much deeper trouble than we even imagine.
Well, I think it's starting to show. If they're admitting that they've lost 80,000, and you know how the government works, as we do, because that's who we were employed by, you can figure double or triple those numbers are lost in the weeds. And, you know, it explains, like you said, that 5 or 6 million people that are supposed Canadians that probably aren't. I think it's time that we need to get on a page, maybe not like President Trump. You know, I agree. Let's get rid of people that need to be gotten rid of. Let's bring back pride to, I mean,
not a false pride,
and not a false pride.
Yeah.
And let's make it not more difficult, but let's make it more means-based testing for people to come here. You know, if you've got a skill that we need, like maybe somebody knows how to build a foundry or knows how to build drilling platforms and refineries and whatever, then let's look at those people. Like, we don't need more aged parents or grandparents into the country. Do we need farmers, people that can build up our own greenhouses, that we can rely an awful lot more on what was the old thing? You should be getting things within 100 miles of your house.
Yes.
You know, let's strive for that kind of stuff. And if it means we have to use fossil fuel as opposed to electricity, or we have to find different ways to make power, then let's bring in people that can help us out. Denmark, apparently, this year they're anticipating will be 100% electric cars. Now, they've obviously figured out something with their power system and their power grids. Maybe we should be looking at bringing some of those people over to try and help us out and fix things. We're certainly not going to get it with the current bunch of people, and we would hope that maybe the next bunch of people that come in will be open to that kind of information and response. But yeah.
Well, the reality is this country is in the northern hemisphere, has limitations on various agricultural products. This country is next door to a behemoth, which makes our relationship with it tenuous sometimes, but also very comfortable at others, for various reasons. And so it always has to bear in mind that we can't move and our neighbors aren't going to. That's just as simple. And we can work together really well, or we can get into a competitive,
a meaningless
competitive pissing match, you know, much of it spiteful because of the idiot king that runs the place. And frankly, the person who is on the other side of the fence has a bit of vengeance in his heart too, because after years of being tormented by the idiot king, who never thought he'd become president. Let's be honest here. These are two people who hate each other's guts, okay? But that should not be to the detriment of either Americans or Canadians.
Yeah, that's right.
Frankly, okay. So that's pretty clear. But in strategic terms, no one's coming to save Canada. If this thing goes badly for Canada and Canadians, who are you going to call? China? India? The European Union? Colombia? Who the hell are you going to call? Iran?
Oh.
You made the joke during pre-production.
We should maybe call him Mr. Zelensky to come and help us.
Yeah, I'm sure he's full of bright ideas. So, just to put an end to tonight's discussion, we need to have some smarts here. We need to get a grip on things. The reality is, we're in tough times for all sorts of reasons. Okay, all this is man-made. None of this is because there was a volcano erupting or a tsunami washing over this. This is man-made stuff, can be fixed by people. Okay, so the adults in the room in Canada and the adults in the room in the United States need to sit down and act like adults.
Yeah. And
the petulant twits that are on either side of the fence, for that matter, need to get lost. Okay, so that's from two old guys.
That's right. And to our fellow Canadians, you've been sitting on the pot long enough, and it's time to finish your business or get off. And you should be up there, not armed revolt, but certainly talking. Let's get the government back where the government's supposed to be. It's elected by the people, for the people. Maybe we don't have that written into our wonderful legislations.
The charter.
Yeah. It's time that we have this. Slaps on the side of the head, maybe.
Bob, do you realize this is the longest episode we've ever recorded, which must be indicative of the heaviness of the topic we've.
Yeah, because we didn't even really talk about border issues or U.S. issues or European issues.
No.
Oops, we're bad.
We're bad. Are bad. Okay, well, at the risk of going over the same thing, let's agree to reconvene next week. Perhaps we'll have some good news to talk about.
There's gotta be. I've always said, under all this horse manure, there's got to be a pony, and I'll certainly keep digging, looking for him.
And maybe someone will tell us what the proper etiquette for putting dishes in the dishwasher will be. There must be a manual somewhere, or guidance.
Well, I don't know. I searched high and low for the manual that said how to be a parent, and I'm still trying to find it. But...
All right. Well, listen. You look after yourself there on the left coast, and we'll talk a week from now.
If not before.
Okay. Yeah. Adios.
Adios.